Hey everybody, my name is Brian. If you're watching this video, you are either going through a divorce or you're considering a divorce. And like me, you were searching YouTube looking for anything that could help. I didn't find a whole lot. There were either lawyers trying to sell you their services or there were life coaches trying to sell you their services. I'm neither a lawyer or a life coach. I'm just a normal person. When I went through my divorce, I took a lot of notes because I wanted to revisit this after the divorce was done and see what I needed to do to heal and move on. And what ended up being just jotting down like a note here and there ended up being like this whole big catalog of notes. And some friends have really convinced me to sit down and make a whole video series. So this is the guide to surviving a divorce, and I hope it helps just one person. I'm not selling you a service. I don't have a subscription plan. I don't have any of that. I'm just trying to help people. So some general statistics here. I have to refer to my notes a lot for these. General statistics, 50% of all marriages end in divorce. I should say 50% of all first-time marriages end in divorce. So if this is your first marriage, you have a coin toss chance of it ending in divorce. You just don't know. It's 50-50. That's pretty scary when you think about it. That means half of all first-time marriages fail instantly. Just, they're done. There's not a whole lot you can say or do about it. That being said, every time you get a divorce and remarry, your chances of divorce go up 10%. So your first marriage is 50-50. Your second marriage is a 60%. Your third marriage is a 70%. And that's exactly where I was. It was my first marriage and her third. So we had a 70% chance. And if you combine the two numbers, we actually had an 80% chance of getting a divorce. I didn't know any of this. It's not like they sit you down in school and say, hey, this is what you need to know before you get married, which is the whole point of making this video series. It gets worse. I'm not trying to paint a bleak picture here, but it does get worse. 85% of people that get divorced go on to remarry within 5 years. That's nuts. So the average marriage in the United States lasts about 6 to 10 years. That's the average marriage. If you do the math on that, that means the average American, by the time they die, is going on their second, third, or even their fourth marriage. Some people just say, you know what, I'm done, and they never remarry. I'm not trying to say that marriage is a bad thing. You have to understand that modern marriage, especially in the United States, is a legal contract. You are literally signing a legal document. It doesn't matter where you get married, what day you get married, how many doves fly off in the background, or what kind of ceremony you have, or even what religion you are. At the end of this, you're going to sign a legal document. That legal document is binding in the entire United States, not just where you got married. Got to be kind of careful. Again, they don't explain any of this before you get married, so you've got to really understand what you're doing. All right, so I have to refer to my notes from time to time. The focus of this series, really, what are we going to be talking about here? Well, we're going to be talking about how to better yourself. And no, this isn't some frou-frou self-help thing. This is, when you go through a divorce, every aspect of your identity is going to be questioned. And I mean every aspect of your identity. Who you are as a person, how good of a spouse you are, how attractive or intelligent you think you are, who you are as a parent, how much money you have, your religion, maybe even your ethical beliefs and your boundaries will be put in question. And you're going to have to really learn how to come to grips with a lot of that and be able to emotionally and mentally and intellectually navigate these things while you're going through just a financial minefield, especially if you're a guy. Most divorces financially devastate men. It's just a hard fact. Now, we're going to focus on how to survive all this, and not just survive it, but overcome it and come out even better than you were than before you even met your ex. I know, I didn't think it was possible, and I went through like this really dark time of my divorce where I just went down this hole and I just didn't think I was going to come back out. But divorce for me was actually really, really liberating. I actually came out the other side of this way happier than I was when I even met my ex. I just want a lot of people to learn from my mistakes and not repeat some of the mistakes that myself or some of my friends made. I had a benefit. I think it was almost an unfair advantage compared to most people that get divorced, because as I was getting married, I had two friends that were going through a divorce, and one of my close friends is actually a lawyer. So I kind of sat down with all of them individually and said, what do I need to know before I get into this? So I had a pretty good understanding, but I had that understanding right before I was walking down the aisle to get married. So we're going to be covering a lot of material in this, a lot. So I'm just going to read from the table of contents. I'm going to try to publish these videos semi-regularly. And at the end of these videos, I may actually make more if there's a demand, or I may do interviews with people who have gone through the divorce process, just to kind of solidify everything that I'm saying is accurate. So the divorce survival guide is as follows. What you need to do before the marriage. That's right, before the marriage, because the divorce process starts before you're even married. That sucks. What you need to do during the marriage. A lot of people don't understand that the way you conduct yourself during the marriage will vastly impact how your divorce ends up. And we're going to talk about if you're considering a divorce. There's a lot to really sit down and digest. I mean, a lot to digest when you're considering a divorce. It's not just from an emotional standpoint. You financially have to sit down and say, am I going to be able to financially survive this, let alone emotionally? You also need to look at value. We're going to talk about value quite a bit. What value do you bring to their life versus what value do they bring to your life? You've got to be kind of careful when you consider value, because not everybody's the same and not everybody has the same values. Personal safety, that's another one we're going to really touch on. And guys, don't skip that section. Trust me, I've got some WTFs that are going to blow your mind. We're also going to talk about taking a harsh look at yourself. That is going to be a painful one, because you have to really sit down and strip all your ego off of you and look at yourself and your own behavior. And that's something that, as a guy, I challenge myself to really get better at, because I think that men in general really suck at doing that. We're going to talk about how to get over a breakup really fast. And I mean breathtakingly fast. You'll be surprised how fast you can actually get over someone, but in a healthy way, not in like a, kind of toxic, codependent way. We're going to discuss multiple breakups, because believe it or not, most people that break up actually go back to their ex. I did. It's a bad decision. Spoiler alert, it's a really bad decision to do that. We're also going to talk about rebounds. Again, not a healthy thing for you to do. You need to take the time to heal and move on before you go off and get into another relationship. And we're going to talk about the court system quite a bit. Again, this is not legal or financial advice, but we are going to talk about legality and finances and how the court systems are just not fair to everybody in general, but especially to men. I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Men, we get the short end of the stick in the court system. Everybody knows it, but nobody wants to admit it. And we're going to talk about some general rules to follow. And these rules are for everybody, not just guys. There's a lot of people that just don't play by the rules. You know who you are. We're going to talk about mental health. Again, I am not a mental health professional. I'm just going to relay a lot of the things that I've learned. And we'll talk about dealing with emotions. That's going to be a challenging one, because when we talk about emotions, you have to understand that your emotions are going to be all over the chart. You're going to be sounding like a lunatic to your friends and family. They're going to actually go, bro, are you okay? We're also going to talk about physical health. Physical health is going to be something you really shouldn't skip, because I've learned through this whole process that the mind and body are definitely kind of integrated in a very deep way that most people just don't understand. I didn't understand it at first, but emotions, you will actually feel them in your body. And if you don't understand how you're feeling them, you're not going to understand how to overcome them. We're going to talk about dating during a divorce. Don't do it. We're going to talk about finding the right type of lawyer. You have to really do your homework. Don't just go out and hire the first lawyer that comes along, because there's some bad ones out there. I had some experiences that we'll talk about in this series, but definitely shop around. And we're going to talk about what to do if you cannot afford a lawyer. I know I'm going to get hit with those kind of questions of, hey, I just can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford any of this. I'm going through a divorce. What do I do? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about the actual individual steps in a divorce. The steps are somewhat universal. I have to say somewhat, because I got divorced in Michigan, and Michigan law is different than, say, California law, but the overall steps are almost identical. And parts of the divorce we're talking about are the filing, the answering, discovery, mediation. Do not go to mediation if you can avoid it. the waiting period after mediation before you're actually divorced, that is like going to be one of the hardest times of your life. And we're going to talk about the actual court. You got to be kind of careful when talking about court systems, because you have to be conscious and understand that it's really not public information what happens in a courtroom unless it's made public. But at the same time, there are some general steps and procedures we have to talk about. And more importantly, the kind of finale of this whole video series is going to be the aftermath of how do you heal, how do you move on, and how do you love yourself in a healthy way and come to terms with what just happened in your life and move forward and be a much better person than you were before this whole process even started. And we'll talk about dating and moving on in life. But one question I'm going to get right off the bat is, how do I get my ex back? And I'm going to level with you. This video series is not designed to get your ex back. It is just simply not. You can use the tips and techniques in this video series to become a better person, which will ultimately attract your ex back. But we're not going to talk step by step of how to get your ex back. And there's a very specific reason for that. If you are going through a divorce, or you are even considering a divorce, that is not the right person for you. And if you take them back, I know I did. I took her back so many damn times. If you take them back, you are just begging to get hurt over and over and over again. And you're going to repeat that self-harm cycle. And before you know it, you're going to lose everything. So if you're considering wanting your ex back, I want you to stop. Pause this video, take a long look in the mirror and ask yourself, why? What value did they bring to your life? It's easy to sit there and romanticize, oh, they were my everything and they did everything for me. Did they really? Take a hard look at the situation and a hard look at yourself. Have some self-respect and sit down and think this through. I guarantee you, you're going to come to the same conclusion I did, which is if the relationship isn't working, it's likely not going to work no matter what you do. Now, I'm going to get some hate comments for that. I actually do encourage you, if you're considering divorce, to go get therapy, go get couples counseling, sit down, have those painful 2 a.m. conversations, set healthy boundaries. But if you've done all of that and it's just not working, it's not going to work in the future. So as we go through this video series, just understand the main goal here is to survive divorce and come out way better on the other side and way happier than you ever thought possible. This is going to be a wild ride, so buckle up and let's go.